Hey guys, Untap Your Go here, and today I wanted to try to do something different, and I'm going to do a couple pack openings. This is my first time actually being able to get onto the game all day. As of the time of recording, it is 1:30 in the morning, so it's essentially the day after the official release because the servers were flooded and it was giving problems all day. So I figured I didn't want to risk losing any cards that I may open in this or anything due to some complications with the network, so I decided to wait until basically a 24-hour period almost. So we're going to open these up. We're going to go 10 at a time for the first 40, and then we'll just go open the 8s over time, and then we're going to talk about some cards that we get, as well as at the end of the pack openings, I'm going to try to brew a deck. I am most likely going to build Mono Blue Mill. Let's be fair, it's like Mill is one of my favorite archetypes, so I'm probably going to try it out first. And based off of what we opened and, you know, what cards I need to craft and stuff like that, we'll see if we can get there. And then tomorrow, I'm going to be playing that deck in Standard 2020. So stay tuned for that. And if you guys like this kind of content, please let me know down in the comments below so I can keep you guys, you know, entertained and all that good stuff. And if you guys are entertained, please consider leaving a like and a comment anyway, as well as hitting the subscribe button, hitting the bell for notifications so you guys can keep up to date with more content like this. And with that, let's get into it and see what we open. So our first 10, got quite a few wild cards here. And ooh, Vilath World Sculptor, 6 mana 5/5 elemental. Enters battlefield, create a 0/1 plant creature token for each basic land you control, and whenever a land enters a battlefield under control, put 4/1 counters on target plant you control. Okay, so it's like essentially Avenger of Zendikar, right? Like Avenger of Zendikar went wide for every land you controlled, and then whenever a land came into play, it would put a 1/1 counter on all plants you controlled. This one is essentially the same. It doesn't go as wide because it doesn't count the non-basics, and it's kind of just like, instead of it being a go wide strategy, it's a go big strategy. You can just like dump all your counters into one token. This is a pretty interesting card. I'll probably build around this in standard. With Seagate Restoration, this is the mythic DFC card, the dual land. Maybe saying DFC, just abbreviate some of these. So basically, they can come into play as a land, or as whatever the other half is, whether it's a creature, instant, sorcery, whatever. So for this one, it comes in tapped unless you pay 3 life, and it taps for a blue. And then the other half is for 4 and 3 blue, 7 total with sorcery speed. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand plus 1. You have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. So this card's kind of meh, right? I mean, like, you have to have a bunch of cards in your hand already for it to kind of give you anything. Otherwise, it's just a 7 mana draw one. And if it's your top, yeah, like if it's your top deck, it's a 7 mana draw one. I think this is probably the weakest one out of all of them, but still, you got to give it some merit just because it's the fact that it can be a spell or a land. Like, granted, if you have, you know, 4 or 5 or more cards in your hand by the time this resolves, you know, drawing that many +1 doesn't seem terrible, but even still, it's sorcery speed, and, you know, you have to take up your whole turn to do it. I'm just not really a huge fan of this one particularly. Valakut's Awakening. This one I'm a huge fan of, though. I love this card. 3 mana, instant, 2 in a red. Put any number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your library, then draw that many cards +1. It's literally like the same exact thing, right? Like it's almost the same exact thing, just in a different way of achieving the same exact effect, except this costs a whole 4 mana cheaper, and it's not as mana intensive with triple blue, and it's also a land. Comes into play tapped. You can't pay the life to make it come and play untapped, but like, who cares, really, right? Like, who cares? Magmatic Channeler, a 2 mana 1/3. As long as there are 4 more instants in your graveyard, it gets +3/+1, and you can discard a card to exile the top 2 of your library, and then choose one of them. You may play that card this turn. I love it. This card's good. I mean, in the early game, you know, it's a 1/3 that gives you a lot of card filtering and stuff, and then, you know, once you hit its 4 or more instants of sorcery, it's just a 2 mana 4/4 is great, right? Like in red, that's awesome. Like, it's 2 mana 4/4 that also draws cards when you need it to. Yeah, I think this is fantastic, and it's a wizard, so it's definitely going to see that aspect too of the card. People are definitely going to try it out for at least that. Let's see, we have Needle Verge Pathway. This is alright. So these are the new dual lands that are going to be replacing the shocks essentially. So instead of us having Sick or Foundry, we now have this, which is either a red or a white. Felidar Retreat. I love this too. This is kind of like just a 4 mana field ruin when you break it down. You know, it just makes tokens. It's a lot of fun. Legion Angel, 4 mana, 4/3 flying. When it enters the battlefield, you may reveal a card owned Legion Angel from outside the game, put it in your hand. Okay, so like, I guess you play 2 or 3 in the main deck and 1 or 2 in the sideboard, and kind of just, it's like a Legion Hawk, essentially, just a bigger, chunkier Legion Hawk. Coralhelm Chronicler. It's a 2 and a blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard. Whenever you play a kick spell, draw a card, then discard a card. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 of your library. You may reveal a card with the kicker ability from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest in the bottom in any order. I think this is already better than the other one that does similar, equal to your party count, because that one costs 5, and it only counts for at least 1, like if you include itself. Where this, I mean, obviously it's more limited to the kicker deck, but this is just like, this is really good, right? Like, you get a lot of value for this, and it's also just an engine for, because you're going to be kicking spells anyway, so getting your card draw on top of that, it's really going to help. I think that, especially alongside this, then we got Verizal, the Split Current. This is probably one of my favorite cards from the set. It's definitely not a Hydro Krasis by any means, but in the kicker deck, I think that this card is fantastic. Like, there's maybe, what, 1 or 2 other kicker deck commanders or something, so for the EDH players and stuff alike, this is probably one of the best kicker commanders I think you can play. Maybe not necessarily the colors, I don't know. I mean, green blue is perfect for ramp though, so like, that's fantastic. Anyway, so he's a green blue and X, where 0/0 comes in with a 1/1 counter for each mana spent to cast it. Whenever you cast a kick spell, you may remove 2 1/1 counters from him. If you do, copy that spell and you choose new targets for the copy. So this is unlike Hydro Krasis in the sense where you don't have to pay 2 in the X to pump into it. It doesn't come in like, if you pay for Hydro Krasis, you pay 7, it only comes in as a 5/5. This comes in as at least a 2/2 no matter what you pay into the X, because it's for each mana spent to cast it. So if you dump 7 mana into it versus a Krasis, you're getting a 7/7 versus a 5/5. But it doesn't have flying. There's a lot of pros and cons, so it's definitely not Krasis, but it's gonna fill some voids for some archetypes. Alright, so the next round of 10, got a Mythic Wild card, which is pretty neat. We got Skyclave Hierophant. This guy's pretty cool. Not a lot of people are really talking about him. It's just this, to have this kind of effect on a creature that also includes itself is pretty relevant. I think it makes it, I think, at least more impactful, right? It's not just a 4 mana do nothing. If they kill it or whatever, you at least get a 3 or less creature back just off of it alone. And you stack that into with the other cards, and it's kind of just a better, like, Basri's Lieutenant, I guess. I'm not sure. So you've got Nissa the Shattered Bows, I don't know. 2 green and a black. So this is the Golgari Nissa that everybody's been hyped about. Landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield, you get to put a loyalty counter on her, and obviously in green and any deck that is going to be playing towards that goal, it's going to happen very frequently. So sometimes even the turn that you play her, you can follow it up with a land and get her -5 right away. But her +1 gives a creature, makes a creature a 3/3 elemental with haste and menace, and it's only until end of turn. Thank God it's not the 5 mana Nissa all over again. And then -5, you may put a creature card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control onto the battlefield from your hand or graveyard with 2 1/1 counters on it. So yeah, this is just wow. Like, you know, if you can even play this like turn 5, 6, 7, you know, you might be in by that point with all the land ramp and everything, you might be dropping like Green Wardens, like ancient Green Wardens and stuff, and like, you know, huge Verizals, the serpent we were just talking about. And I think this card's fantastic. It's definitely not Nissa who shakes the world and who shakes many formats, but this is definitely going to see a role at some point in Standard for sure. Next up, you have Angel Destiny. It's 3 and 2 white for a 2/6 flying double strike Angel Cleric. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each gain that much life. Okay, so this is the card that wins you the game. At the beginning of your end step, if you have at least 15 more life than your starting life total, each player Angel of Destiny attacked this turn loses the game. Holy shit. Holy crap. Like, wow. So you can just gain a whole bunch of life and you know, in the life gain decks, they're already 15 or more life ahead. They're trying to do that anyway for Ajani's. I mean, okay, so I guess if you put it in that perspective, like 4-mana Ajani that just did it rotate? Yeah, I think it rotated. His ultimate would like exiled everybody's board state if you had 35 or more life. That's 15 or more life than your starting life total in standard. So that didn't come up as often as it should have, but when it did come up, it was very backbreaking, and I think that this is basically just going to replace that effect. So it's kind of like their win button, because Ajani 0 wiping your opponent's board is essentially going to win you the game. So this is kind of just the win button, and I think White needed this kind of effect. It's very interesting, and very interested to try it, actually. Really excited to try this. Next we have Tajiru Paragon. Is a 2-mana 3/2. He's also a cleric, rogue, warrior, and wizard with kicker 3. If he was kicked, you reveal the top 6 of your library and put a card that shares a creature type from among them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So card advantage for the party deck. This is definitely going to be a 4 of auto include, right? Because I mean, it's just all the types. So yeah, not really much else to say about it. Otherwise, it's just a nice, decent rate bear, I guess. Or a little above rate bear. Next up we have Inscription of Abundance. This is a green inscription. It is 1 and a green for instant with kicker, 2 and a green. So total it will be 3 and 2 green to play this. Choose 1 if it was kicked. Choose any number instead. Put 2 only counters on target creature. Target player gains X life, where X is the greatest power among creatures they control, or target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. So for 5 mana we can, you know, put the 2 counters on a creature, gain the life, and then fight and kill one of our opponent's creatures. This just does so much all in one card. Like these new charms, essentially, that's basically what these are. These modal charms are fantastic. Like imagine if the original like guild cycle charms had a function where you can kick them and get all of the functions at once instead of just one. Like, oh my god, that's basically how I see these. And obviously, like, some are better than the others. I think this is one of the better inscriptions, but I'm definitely excited to play with this as well. Squad Commander is pretty cool. This is probably the best payoff for the party deck, giving them +1/+0 and indestructible on attacks if you have a full party is just nutso. And then, you know, the ETB effect, making the body, you're at least putting 4 power in a player across 2 bodies if you include himself. And then if you can just get like 1 or 2 more, you know, that's like 5 power across 3 bodies for 4, or 6 powers across 4 bodies. You know, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good card overall, I think. Another Legion Angel and another Valakut Awakening. Zareth San, the Trickster, probably one of my favorite cards in the deck. One of my favorite archetypes is ninjutsu. Like, I love ninjutsu. I play Yuriko, the Tiger Shadow, in Commander, blue-black Dimir. And this is automatic shoe-in. I don't even care if it's a ninja. I don't care. Like, just, this card is insane. This card is absolutely ridiculous. So, it has 3 blue and a black for a 4/4 with flash. That's already, like, pretty decent. But we can pay 2 blue and a black and return an unblocked creature, or unblocked attacking rogue, I'm sorry. So I have a few ninja rogues and stuff in the deck, I think, but regardless, my EDH deck. But you can return them, put Zareth San, Trickster on the battlefield from your hand, tapped and attacking, and when he deals combat damage to a player, you may put a target permanent from their graveyard under your control. Target permanent. Like, not just creatures. Holy crap, permanents. I can steal their land so I don't miss my land drops. I can steal their fairies and like all their like bogus stuff. I can steal their euros, which is like not as good, right? Because you just get the enter battlefield trigger. But like regardless, you take so much. You can take anything out of your opponent's graveyard aside from instant sorcery, and for 4 mana and an unblocked attacking rogue, this card is gonna be insane in the Dimir rogue deck. Like in standard, this card is gonna be so good. Keep an eye on this for sure. 10 out of 10. Definitely 10 out of 10. And then, alright, cool. So go into the next 10. We got the black inscription started off, 2 and a black. This is a sorcery, meh, kind of bad. And the kicker is 2 and 2 black, even worse. Jesus, right? So like that's, oh man, that's 4 and 3 black for 7 total. Choose 1. If the spell is kicked, choose any number instead. Target opponent discards 2 cards. Return target creature card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, or destroy target creature with a converted mana cost 3 or less. Why couldn't it just destroy target creature? Right? I mean, it doesn't make sense that you're going to spend 7 mana to destroy something that costs 3 or less. Like, you understand how much of a mana disadvantage that already sounds on paper? Like, if you spend 3 mana to destroy something that costs 7, you're getting a huge mana advantage on your opponent. But when you're paying 7 mana to destroy something that costs 3 or less, and then you're only getting a creature that costs 2 or less, and then your opponent discards 2 cards, this is terrible, right? Like, you're spending 7 mana by that turn. Your opponent shouldn't really have too many cards left in their hand anyway, so the discard 2 function is probably irrelevant. Returning a creature card with where mana costs 2 or less from your graveyard is like, okay, if that's the only mode you decided to use it for, or you could pay 3 to destroy a creature with mana costs 3 or less. Like, you don't have to kick it, sure. Granted, that's, you know, but I'm saying as far as utilizing the full value of this card, I don't think it's there. I think, you know, at least having essentially a Mind Rot and then, you know, a sorcery speed eliminate tacked onto it with a less than bad, like, it's a worse Call of the Death Dweller too. Like, it's just, I'm not really buying it. We have the red-blue dual land. This is going to replace Steam Vents. We have Skyclave Shade. This is essentially like Bloodghast now. So whenever a land comes in, and it's alright, so it's a 1 and a black for a 2 mana 3/1 with kicker, 2 and a black. It can't block. If it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 2 counters, so it can be a 5/3 for 5 mana. And then whenever a land enters the battlefield under our control, we may cast it from our graveyard. Fantastic. On our turn too, so it's not like as nearly as good as Bloodghast. We don't get to get them back into play on our opponent's end step. They don't get haste if your opponent has 10 or less life. But on the bright side, you get to constantly just have a 5/3, right? Like a 5 mana 5/3 that you can just keep bringing back, and you just keep grinding out your opponent. If they don't exile it, you know, it's just like, think about Uro. Think about how long Uro is 6 engraves, and like people can escape it multiple times throughout the game and just, you know, grind out and get as much value as they want, you know. Granted, this can't block or trade with Uro, but I mean, it's just like, it's kind of like another like Woe Strider that you don't have to escape, you know. It's like, it's almost exactly a Woe Strider that you don't have to escape, but it costs 1 mana less for a 3/1. It's not bad. I think it's going to go very well in mono black, if nothing else, mono black for sure. Myriad Construct is a 4 mana artifact for a 4/4 with kicker 3. If it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each non-basic land your opponents control. When it becomes a target of a spell, sacrifice it and create a number of 1/1 colorless construct tokens equal to its power. Okay, so it's not great, or it's not great. It's not quite Hangerback Walker, but this is like the next Hangerback Walker. You know, I mean, it doesn't make 1/1s that fly. It makes 1/1s, sure. And if it just dies or gets exiled, whatever, doesn't matter. It has to be specifically targeted, which is fine. I think in the right deck, this could be used for just like a go wide token strategy, right? Something that maybe like the counters deck might want this actually, because they're probably going to be targeting their creatures with spells anyway, right? You can use the green Inscription, for example, and, you know, put 2 counters on a creature. Sure, those 2 counters are going to just make it die, but in response to the way this card works, if you hold full control and you target it with a spell, you can target it again with another spell as this ability goes on the stack, and just keep doing that for as many spells as you can target it with. And by the time that it resolves, it's going to it's going to essentially go on the stack that many times. You're going to make that many 1/1 tokens times that many cards that you cast. So definitely keep an eye out for this card. It's something. Null Price of Oblivion, it's 2 mana for a 2/1 with Menace and Lifelink. Love it. That alone, boom, great. Vampire Cleric, love it. Fantastic. Oh, what? It's got extra mana sinks for the late game. 3 and a black. When it enters the battlefield, is kicked, you can return a creature from the graveyard to the battlefield. So it's a Rise Again with a body attached to it. That has 2 relevant keywords that you can also play in the early game. That also has 2 relevant creature types. Yeah, I think if, like, as far as paper magic goes, this card's got to be worth at least a couple bucks, right? I mean, I'll look it up or something, but I mean, this card's fantastic. Fantastic. Crawling Barrens, this is the colorless manland to complete the full cycle of the Zendikar manlands between the original Zendikar and Battle for Zendikar. So this taps for colorless, comes into play untapped, one of the only ones that does, and you can pay 4 not even tap it, just 4, as much as you can afford it, to put 2 1/1 counters on it, and you may have it become a 0/0 elemental creature token with haste. Or no, not haste. Okay, so it's just elemental creature until end of turn. Has summoning sickness, sure, but on the stack, you can just like pay 4 as many times as you can afford it, and just like dump counters onto this land, and then you don't have to animate it and have it become a creature. Like if you know it's just gonna die, just put, and you have nothing else to do with it, just put the mana into it just to grow it, so that way the next time you activate it, it's bigger and badder, stronger, and then we win the game. Because that's how you play Magic. You know, you go bigger and stronger than your opponent, and you win the game. Okay, and then we start to like ramp into that even better. We got Lotus Cobra, right? So this is a reprint, and they downshifted it to rare, which is fantastic. I think they downshifted it in the last reprint, like Eternal Masters or whatever one that was reprinted in. But anyway, it's a 2 mana 2/1, little less than Rate Bear, but it's got landfall. Whenever a land enters battlefield control, add 1 mana of any color. If you've never played with this card, please trust and believe that this card is absolutely 100% without a doubt one of the best mana dorks they've ever made in Magic. Hands down, by far. Like the amount of mana that you can generate sometimes on one turn with this card is insane, and when you play them in multiples, forget about it. Now granted, we don't have fetch lands really, like we have Fabled Passage and Evolving Wilds, but a lot of decks are playing Fabled Passage anyway. You're going to play Fabled Passage for Lotus Cobra, and then Evolving Wilds, you might jam 1 or 2 copies in or something, but it's there, man. The value is there regardless. It's really good. It works well with Beanstalk Giant, the new Harrow card that got released or whatever, and yeah, it's gonna be exhausting with this and Uro in the format for sure. Linvala, Shield of Seagate. This card's great. 1 white and a blue for a 3/3 with flying for an Angel Wizard. Beginning of combat of your turn, if you have a full party, you choose target non-land permanent opponent controls until your next turn. It can't attack, block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. So it just like locks out opponent's creature every combat. It's pretty good. And then sacrifice Linvala at any time. Choose hexproof or indestructible. Creatures you control gain that ability until end of turn. So I think this is probably one of the best party cards in and outside of the party build, right? Like you don't have to go all in for the party to get any use out of this card, right? Like it's a 3 mana 3/3 with flying that has 2 relevant creature types that you can sacrifice at instant speed to save all your creatures from targeted removal and board wipes. All in one card. This card's good. Next is Arcanum Vamaira. It's 2 and a white for a 2/3 with flying. Each player can cast more than 1 spell each turn. Non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. So, in like a prison deck or something, this definitely would seem really good. Each player not being able to cast more than 1 spell is pretty nuts. Granted, that also includes yourself, so you better hope that your 1 spell is better than their spell, but it also just helps against, like, it seems like a really good combo piece against goblins, maybe, you know, in Historic or something. The lands, meh, like the lands coming into play tap doesn't really matter as much because they don't play a whole lot of non-basic lands, but just being able to like slow down the pace of how much they can just explode and dump onto the table. And we got another Phylath World Sculptor to finish off that round of 10. Going into the next set of rares. Got another few more wild cards. Got another Arcanum Vamaira. Scourge of the Skyclaves. This is almost like Death Shadow, right? So it's 1 and a black for a star with kicker, 4 and a black for a total cost of 7. When you cast a spell, if it was kicked, each player loses half their life rounded up, and then Scourge of the Skyclaves power and toughness are each equal to 20, minus the highest life total among power players. So yeah, it's not nearly as good as Death Shadow, because you can just hurt yourself, and that's easy and consistent, and very hard for your opponent to interact with, because it's just going to happen naturally over the course of the game. But with this, you need to make sure that both players have reasonably low life totals for this to be good. But like at the same time, hear me out. If your opponent has even 18 life, it's 2 mana 2/2. You know, it's not terrible. 2 mana 2/2. Now if they have 17, 2 mana 3/3, 16, 2 mana 4/4. Now like you're starting to get like really kind of scary. Assuming your opponent, you know, that you also have that same life total. But I think this is probably like a really good sideboard card for mirrored aggressive strategies, like aggro deck versus aggro deck. both your life totals are going to be very low. So this just ends up becoming a huge brick wall that your opponent can't get through. I think the only thing that makes this card not the best that it could be is that it doesn't have any form of evasion and they can just chump it all day. But being able to kicker, you know, have the kicker cost effectively, you know, as a late game strategy is not terrible. Alright, Wayward God Beast. This is basically Goblin God. You can even see Goblin God in the picture, so I love this card. It's a 1-mana 2/2 with Trample Haste. When it deals combat damage to a player, return a land you control to its owner's hand. You're probably not going to be playing this in turn 1 as often as you would just regular Goblin God. Or maybe you might, but you know, it's definitely something you can play on turn 2 or 3. And I think for the landfall strategy matters deck, like this is definitely got to be at least a 2 or 3, if not all 4, right? Because it's just very aggressive, well statted. It's got 2 very relevant keywords. The drawback's not even that serious. When in the deck where you're trying to nail your land drops, it just gives you more means of doing so. So I think this card's really good for at least that purpose. Thorn of McKindy. I love this card. Taps for 2, but it just taps for 2 for kick spells. This card is awful. Awful. Taps for colorless, pay 1, put a charge counter, so it's a storage counter land. There's been plenty of them in existence, and I just don't really think much of them have been any good. This one removing to tap for 2 is fantastic, but it's any one color and it's only for kicked spells, so it's hard to get excited about this card. Null Priest of Oblivion, we got another one of them. Archpriest of Iona. This is a 1-star for a 1/2 for a human cleric. Archpriest of Iona's power is each equal to the number of creatures in your party. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, target creature gets +1/+1 and gains flying until end of turn. So this is probably like one of the best 1-drops for the party deck, right? So I mean, it's always a 1-mana 1/2, but it's with a full party, it's a 1-mana 4/2 that also can give a creature +1/+1 and flying until end of turn. So it's pretty good. Isharn Implacable Earth. It's for a 2 green and white for 4/4. Enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic forest and a basic plains card. Reveal those cards, put them into your hand, and shuffle your library. And then players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activated abilities. This card is great. It's so good. This is probably a really good sideboard piece for like ramp decks, or maybe even possibly main deckable, just to kind of shut down like the sacrifice decks and, you know, being able to pay life and just shutting down all their strategies. It's going to be huge. Think about the new DFC lands, the mythic ones. They can pay 3. They can't pay the 3 for that. They can't pay any life for anything. So this card just seems like it's a really good sideboard piece, if nothing else. But, you know, for a 4-mana 4/4, it's not bad. Maul of Skyclaves. This card's fantastic. So it's 2 and a white for an artifact equipment. It enters battlefield, attach it to target creature you control, and it gets +2/+2 and has flying and first strike and equipped 2 and dub. So, I mean, it's already decently statted on its own, right? Like if this was an aura, imagine a 2 and a white aura that gives your creature +2/+2 flying and first strike. It's good enough, you know. But then there's also that downside. If your opponent kills it, then you get 2 for 1, and it's the blowout scenario, and nobody wants that. But this is an equipment that attaches itself for free. There's a lot of, like, I think almost all the equipment in this set actually attach themselves for free, which makes equipment even better. Like, if equipment was like that forever, like, some equipment definitely would be way too strong, like Argentum Armor or something crazy like that. But this card is great. Like, it attaches itself. It gives even a 1/1 becomes a relevant attacking creature for a 3/3 flying first strike, whatever. But then you can equip it for 4. That's not bad. It's not bad. I think this is probably in the top 3 strongest equipment in standard, easily. I wouldn't say, you know, outside of standard, I don't think this sees as much play. But I think maybe historic, this is probably still fine. Pioneer might pick this up. There's plenty of formats that might want this, honestly. And to finish off this round of 10, we have Shadow Skull Charger. It is 1/2 red for a 4/3 with Trample Haste and Kicker 2. If it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it. At the beginning of your end step, if Shadow Skull Charger doesn't have a 1/1 counter on it, return it to its owner's hand. So it's a 3-mana 4/3 with Trample Haste. It's really good, and then it bounces itself. So if your opponent's tapped out, just hit him for 4, and then bounce it on your turn. So it keeps it protected. Your opponent has to have discard or some form of interacting with it otherwise. And then when you can afford it finally to have it be a 5/4 for 4 mana, then you, or for 6 mana, then you just slam it down, and it still has Trample and Haste. I think this card's really good. It's gonna pressure a lot of people's light totals very early on. And I think Mono Red might pick up all 4 copies of it. Alright, so we're down to the final 8. Oh, Ruin Crab. I hope I opened all 4 already, because like I'm obviously building. Ooh, man, I'm getting it. Alright, Confounding Conundrum. It is 1 and a blue for an enchantment. Enters the battlefield, draw a card. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, if that player had another land enter the battlefield under their controller's turn, they return a land they control to its owner's hand. Alright, so this slows down ramp players from being able to just go like more than a bunch, you know, like 2 or 3 lands in a turn. So they can get their landfall triggers all they want, but they're not going to be able to just like go wide with their land count really fast. That's interesting. Not quite an effective way of really shutting down. It's not, I don't know, like for 2 mana, just it's weird. It doesn't quite get there for me. Got another Ruin Crab, so if that's not a sign to play, I don't know what is. We got another Valakut Exploration. Oh no, this is different. Okay, so Valakut Exploration, 2 and a red for an enchantment, landfall. When it's battlefield under control, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card for as long as it remains exiled, and then at the beginning or end step, if there are no cards exiled with it, put them. Or if there are cards exiled with it, put them into their owner's graveyard, then Valakut Exploration deals that much damage to each opponent. Ooh, so if you sock in like a few lands or something, exile the top X cards or whatever, you get to play them, and then if you don't, you get value for not playing them. Most cards that like let you do this effect, where it's like exile the top till end of turn you can play it or whatever, you know, most of the time if you spend the mana to get that effect, like the 4 mana Challenger from War of the Spark or whatever, right? You pay 4 to play her, then you +1. You probably can't even play the card off the top that you know, the same turn that you play her, unless it's like a land and it's like, you know, you already have the 4 mana to begin with. Or this, if you don't get to play the card immediately, it at least goes into your graveyard out of exile, so you can still keep the card and get it back later, and you're dealing damage to your opponent. This card is fantastic, I think, for the spells deck. Absolutely great. Maybe not the spells deck, for the landfall deck, I mean, but it might even see play in the spells deck as just like another clean, natural way of just getting in some chip damage, because let's face it, they're going to want to draw cards. They're going to want to get, you know, cards off the top, and they're going to be playing lands regardless, and being able to just get that extra few points of burn. Burn might even want to play that, honestly, as a 4 of. Alright, so we got another Legion Angel, so we almost have the whole set. We can play it. Blood Beckoning is pretty cool. This is the card I'm more excited about. Bloodchief's Thirst. I'm a little disappointed that it's a sorcery, but overall it's still a perfect card. Destroy target creature or planeswalker with converted mana cost 2 or less. Please don't make any more 2 mana planeswalkers. Wizards, just don't. If the spell was kicked, instead destroy target creature or planeswalker. So it's got a nice little. It's good in the early and late game. It just scales very well with the late game. Oh, we got another Mythic. We're gonna be crafting some cards today. Ooh, we got another Valakut Exploration. We're definitely gonna be playing with that card as well. Very excited to see how strong some of these cards are actually in the format. Alright, Shadow Skull Smashing. So this is the Mythic DFC land. So the land side is the red. Comes into play tapped unless you pay 3. Spell half is 2 red and X for a sorcery. It deals X damage divided as you choose among up to 2 target creatures and or planeswalkers. If X is 6 or more, it deals twice X damage divided as you choose among them instead. Doesn't hit players. That's the only thing that sucks about this card. Just doesn't hit players. Like they can get rid of. They could easily have just gotten rid of the twice X clause and just made it creature, planeswalker, or player. That's it. Just make a fireball type effect. Even if it was sorcerer speed, who cares? It's attached to a land, so like, you know, again, like I said before, the lands are already modal. Like they're going to be versatile and playable in pretty much anything. So I kind of just feel like they shafted this one. They didn't give it as much love as the white or black one. I think they're just better. They're just honestly better cards. Right, down to our last 2. Alright, we got the green-black dual land, so we got almost one of each. I don't think I've opened any in Heries. Alright, Oran Reef Ooze for our final card. This is 2 and a green for a 2/2 Ooze. Enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control, and whenever it attacks, put a 1/1 counter on each attacking creature with a 1/1 counter on it. So this goes in the counter stack. It actually synergizes with a lot of oozes, so ooze tribal, hooray! That's gonna be a thing, maybe. I'm gonna try it anyway. And then it's just a natural. It's one of those cards that just puts counter on a dude when it comes in. It can hit itself. It can hit, it can hit other creatures, and then just being able to pump all of your team, all of them. If creatures have counters, this essentially says when your creature's attacked, give them +1/+1, and then sticks forever. So definitely gonna try that. So to take it in with the cards that we have crafted, I'm gonna build a mono blue mill, and I have enough rares to hopefully be able to do this. I'm going to craft it for, well, actually I just have to hit standard now. I'm so used to having to hit like 20/20 standard or whatever, so my mistake about that. We are definitely going to be playing, I'm just going to get rid of this filter so I can get rid of all these new cards. Change the setup here as well. So we're obviously going to be playing the Venturous. We're probably going to be playing the Sanctuaries as well. To finish off with maybe some Secret Keepers. Maybe some Overwhelmed Apprentice. We're definitely playing all 4 crabs. I'll craft the last one. Play Folio. It's not terrible. I don't think it's really. It's probably still not good enough in the format, honestly. Even with rotation. Mill is honestly just aggressive enough. Did I not open any Maddening Cacophonies? Okay, so craft all 4 of the Maddening Cacophonies. This card, 1 in a blue, sorcery, kicker 3 in a blue. Each opponent mills 8 cards if the spell was kicked. Instead, that opponent mills half their library rounded up. This card's fantastic. I'm playing it forever and always. In Standard and in Historic with Brewvac, it just mills your opponent down to nothing except for, I believe, 1 card. I think they get to keep 1 card. Even still, like, who cares? I think that's fine. Let's check the rest of the 1-drops that we may have missed as well. This is probably fine too. I'm definitely going to craft this as well. I might be playing that. I know I'm going to be playing it in the Rogue Mill deck, but as far as the mono blue version, not quite sure. I may end up seeing the cut. So what else can we play here? I know we're definitely going to be playing Teferi's Tutelage. Why are you? Oh, so I gotta do that every time. That's okay. That's very confusing. Brazen Borrower for us. Let's see. We can also. All right, so we're definitely playing Teferi's Tutelage as well. Just find it. Did I pass it? I didn't. I did. How is this card right now? Finish the battlefield, exile target spell. Opponents can cast spells with the same names. Exile card. It's not quite there. Maybe Reign of Revelation. If we're going to be playing Teferi's Tutelage, we might be just doing the whole draw all the cards strategy. On Epiphany is not terrible either. I mean, I guess we play this in this deck in place of an island, just because. We play all 4 into the story. I believe that is all that we could play as far as blue stuff. So let's take a look at the color list. I'm gonna play 1 of Crawling Barrens because it's the nicest man land. It could end up chumping and be relevant for all we know. Do we need any of this stuff? Any of this stuff good for mill? Do not believe so. So for filters, let's go to Zendikar Rising, see what cards that we have. Filter not collected. See what else we could use here. Counter target non-creature spell unless controller pays 1 plus initial 1 for each creature in your party. No, that's not what we want. Priest of Drakes, negative. Counter target creature or planeswalker spell unless its controller pays 2, and a controller has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. Counter that spell. Okay, yeah, we're playing all 4 copies of that for sure, 100%. We play 2 copies of this because it's a land. Also mills. Last pull mimic seems pretty cool. Huh. Instant sorcery. It's not terrible. What else we got as far as mill? Anything? Spell costs 3 less to cast, but targets a creature whose controller has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. Gain control. Yeah, we're playing that. We playing that. 100%. 100% we're playing that. Alright, so craft these. Okay, so we're definitely gonna play the Fable Passage, even though we're a mono blue deck, because it's gonna hit it's gonna trigger our crabs, which I think we want. So we have 27 lands in the deck. Oh wait, crap, does that count all of it? Does that just automatically count the double face cards now? That's gonna be so annoying with the map. Okay, so for what's this? This 10 is 21, 24. So I still have 24. It's counting it as 25. That's the only. Yeah, see, what about this? How come these aren't being counted? 4, 16, 20, 21. Okay, so yeah, 25. Alright. So I can actually go down like 2 of these. Go up to the run the present apprentices, keep the brazen borrowers, go up 1 Rain Revelation, and that's it. That's what we're gonna do. That's the deck, at least for standard. I'm definitely gonna hit this in a historic as well, because I think historic is just way better seated in that format. But I'm also going to be trying a blue-black version of mill, both with rogues and without rogues, throughout the standard. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the pack openings, and I hope you guys enjoyed this nice little mill brew. I'm going to be playing this deck tomorrow, fresh. I'm not going to do any testing. I'm just going to go ahead and play it, and we're going to see how we do. And I hope you guys enjoy that as well. And again, I appreciate your support. If you guys like the content that I'm providing and trying to provide anyway, I mean, I work hard on this stuff. I'm trying. If you guys enjoy it, please consider leaving a like and comment, as well as subscribe and hit the bell for notifications for more content like this, so you guys can be up to date with when I upload a new video. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you guys enjoy Zendikar. It's been a long wait. I'm really excited. I can't wait to get into some games, and I hope I get to play against some of you guys. Hope you guys enjoy it. See you guys in the next video.